What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Asia, 100% human. I do not use AI to clone myself or my voice or to generate my scripts, only used for my AI cartoons and music videos, which I will only be releasing one more because AI tools collectively are getting expensive. But today, we're going to jump right into reacting to Nick Fuentes on Piers Morgan. Now, there's a lot that can be said about that. A lot. And I even watched the reaction where with Andrew. I can't remember his name. He's usually called the Slayer of Hoes, I believe is his kind of a nickname, if you will. Andrew Wilson, there it is. I watched him, Mark Lamont Hill, and a couple of others reacting on Pierce Morgan. Actually, Pierce wanted to know their opinion of his own interview with Nick Fuentes. Now, there's a lot that was said, but there's really one moment in that exchange that I'm really going to put most of my attention on because I think it was overlooked in most of the commentary from as far as reacting to it that I don't think enough people paid attention to, with the exception of one person, and I can't remember his name, but he comes on Megyn Kelly a lot. His show really only for the most part premieres on Rumble. But before we jump into that number one point, that the biggest point made, if my personal opinion, I have to say this because Nick got a lot of flack from Pierce, specifically because he accepted that label of racist. And here's my thing about labels: no matter who's saying it or where the hell it's coming from, don't accept them like ever, because growing up, I remember when my family used to call me lazy. And both me and my twin sister. And I got to the point where I just stopped accepting it. And my sister was the complete opposite. She used to, she got tired of it, tired of fighting it, just like Nick got tired of being called a racist. So he accepted it. And my sister said, you know what, fine, I'm lazy. But in the reality is that he's not a racist any more than she was lazy. She just didn't want to do what she was told, specifically because of the person telling her to do something. And it's the same thing with Nick. He's only accepting racism because he doesn't want to do this back and forth on what racism is or isn't. And the reality is that Nick Fuentes is not a racist. He's actually a racial realist who unfortunately has to exercise prejudice for safety. And I don't blame him for that because I have to do the same thing. Now, I try not to be a reality show in here, right? Like, I don't like talking about my personal life too much, but I'm going to just tell you a little bit about me. You guys already know that I'm 30 years old, right? I'm a millennial, the youngest of the bunch. I'm Black, Hispanic, but my entire life, I won't say my entire life, I'll say really when I was a preteen onward, I have been called a bedwench, a race traitor. I've been told that I act white because I speak proper English. I don't use ebonics. I never got pregnant. Like, I've never been pregnant. I may not be a virgin, and that's my own shame to carry and cross to bear, but never ever been pregnant, never had an abortion. I never did any of those things. I never went to jail. I'd never been arrested. I my lifestyle is not that of your average Black America. And so for that reason, I myself am not comfortable in Black America. And Nick was making the points about how, you're going to avoid Black people, specifically Black men, because you're nervous. You're concerned that, 9 chances out of 10, you come across a Black person, you're probably going to get robbed. And I agree with him. In fact, I get criticized when people throw this analogy in my face. You're walking down the street. On one side, there's a group of Black men, and on the other side, there are cops. Which side do you go to? I'm going to the side with the cops. Why? Because I don't know these Black men from Adam. And law enforcement, the uniform shows me that they are authority. Their role in society is to protect. And as a female, I feel more safe with the men in uniform whose job in society it is to protect me, right? It's what 1 in a million chance that I'm going to be attacked by the cops, where it's like 1 in 20 if you go with Nick, or 1 in 100 if you go with Pierce. Either way, the odds are too high if I walk down the street of the side of Black men. And I'm going to exercise a prejudice of Black men specifically for my own safety. I sit behind black men on the train and on the buses. Why? Because I won't be that girl. I'm not going to be the one that gets stabbed in the neck. That won't be me. And I'm a female, so I'm dang sure I'm not going to be a Daniel Penny. That's not going to be me either. So I exercise prejudice all the time. I totally agreed with Nick when he said it, and Pierce kind of jumped down his throat and forced that label down his throat. I agree with Nick. Labels are kind of like where we at, but honestly, that sounds like the left, or those free love people. Oh, it's just a label. So I try not to say it that way, but in reality, he's a racial realist who is not racist. He's prejudiced. There is a difference. I mean, I don't know why all of a sudden we don't know the definitions of words anymore. It's not, I'm not saying that Nick doesn't, because he does, but he doesn't like to do the back and forth. Me, I'm going to push back. Don't call me a racist. I don't hate blacks. I don't discriminate against blacks. Not because of the color of your skin anyway. I discriminate over you if your name was a Shinkashay or ABCD or, Demoney. I'm the person who will discriminate on the basis of your name. It's your parents' fault that they named you that, and it's unfortunate that you happen to be black. That is a side note, but y'all catch the drift here. This is just what it is in reality. This is the life, this is the world that we live in. Either it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100. Those are the stats. Whether you're looking at Pierce or Nick, still too high. I'm crossing the street to the side of the cops. And there's nothing wrong with exercising prejudice for your safety. It's unfortunate that we have to do that. But what are you going to do when Democrats want to defund the police? What are you going to do? And so I totally agreed with Nick in that regard. I feel like Pierce was only looking for a fight with Nick. He can say everything that he wants, but he was trying to give Nick this opportunity to either expand on some of the ideas from the clips that he showed. I don't believe that at all. He said that in his episode that he did today, where he was reacting to his own interview with Nick, and he had Andrew Wilson, Mark Lamont Hill, and a couple of others reacting to that interview. And I completely think, no, you weren't doing this in good faith. In fact, I believe that he was only doing this simply because he wanted a gotcha moment with Nick Fuentes. And that's what I totally believe there. But now, with all that said, told you guys my personal preference, what I think about Nick and the racial thing. But this is the point that I think doesn't get enough attention. And I'm going to spend most of this episode talking about that, because honestly, when Nick said it, it was like, thank you. I finally felt like we were being seen and we were being heard as millennials and as Gen Zers. We get dismissed in the world of politics. We just get dismissed unless we're in favor of, what's mainstream in the so-called MAGA movement. And I got to give Marjorie Taylor Greene credit for what she said on 60 Minutes when she completely separated herself from MAGA. And she said, she's America first. MAGA is whatever the hell Trump wants that movement to be. Because, yeah, okay, he started it. It's his. Personally, I think he just, gave the silent majority a more marketable name. But now I'm starting to realize, no, the silent majority were always America first. Trump just came on board and made what we all thought anyway, the principles of America first, the core center of MAGA. But the second he abandoned those principles, the fracture happened. And she said MAGA is whatever he wants it to be. And it's clearly distanced itself from America first, which is what you and I are, not what Trump is. And that's what Nick was trying to get across when they were talking about specifically the world J word. I'm not going to say it because, you guys, we get, YouTube kind of tax channel for it. But when Nick really did say, when he said the words that we don't care, I mean, he wasn't lying. Young people have no more F's to give to the rest of the world or to the woe is me of yesteryear. Why? Because for decades, Christian compassion has been manipulated. For decades, we've been guilt-tripped into funding endless wars, paying reparations, defunding the police, loosening up our laws and policy that respect and uphold our sovereignty as a country. We're done. We're over it. And that was the part that I want to get to specifically. Nick, man, this is why I've been calling him like my god brother in Christ, right? Because he's like the maker, not necessarily the maker of the America First movement, but he sure was the first one to be vocal about it. When Pierce played the clip of his elderly friend, because that was the thing, he played that clip of his elderly friend talking about how his family had been persecuted, and murdered and violated by the Nazis and during the Holocaust. And as sad as that story was to hear, Nick's response was perfect. His exact words were, "I felt nothing watching that. That's not my story. We don't care anymore." Those were his words. Exactly. And when he said it, I was like, yes, thank you. Somebody said it. I'm so glad he said it. I'm just so happy that he did. I mean, didn't you feel the same way? Let me know in the comment section. I know you young Americans, millennials, Gen Zers, I know you felt the same thing that I felt when he said it. We don't care anymore. We're tired of the guilt trips. We're tired of the oh, whoa is me. We're sick of it. Now, I went on and on in another episode about why millennials specifically are taking issue with Trump at this point. When it comes to Venezuela, what we're seeing with him doing, with as far as geopolicy is concerned, why we're getting irritated. It's because we're the generation who were born in the 90s, grew up with this oxymoronic messaging coming from every pillar and the fourth estate and culture to hate Muslims, to not hate Muslims, to let them in, but you also can't be anti-Semitic. And we have to go to war with them. We got to bomb them, but we got to let them into the country. You did all of this to us and we're sick of it. And we're tired of hearing, well, the Holocaust this and the Holocaust that. And we have to keep being allies with this country because of what happened in Germany in a whole other hemisphere. We're responsible. Pierce characterized it then in his interview with Nick and in his reaction today. He said that he believed Nick was being cruel, like he didn't appreciate the jokes that Nick was making about the Holocaust. And then Nick even he was making comments about why is it too soon? Too soon to crack a joke about it? It's been 80 years. I mean, too soon. We can't crack a joke about slavery or Jim Crow. How long has it been? We haven't suffered this. I have a comedian in my family, and a lot of the jokes that she tells involves a lot of trauma in her life that her children have witnessed, but they laugh their way through to healing. And so what's wrong with him cracking a few jokes? Oh, they're cruel. That's how Pierce looks at it. That's how the boomer generation looks at it. And it made it totally clear that this is a problem between generations in politics. We have to suffer 80 to 100-year-olds stroking out on television and being dismissed. All the while, it's our economy that we're watching get destroyed. We're the adults now. We are the adults now. We're the ones who are struggling to buy houses. We're the ones who are struggling to put food on the table for ourselves. Some of us who were out there having a bunch of babies. We're the ones that you indoctrinated to get food stamps and to depend on government. We're the ones that you did this to. And now that we want a change and a shift where you prioritize America, all of a sudden you want to dismiss us. And that's a problem. And that's how we're feeling. And Nick put it perfect into words. This is why millennials and Gen Zers are so done with yesterday's guilt trip. I'm so tired of it. I mean, we get enough of it. And this is the problem with identity politics on both sides, because we're getting it from the left and from the pro-I country on the right, from the pro-I lobbyist groups and commentators of MAGA. They keep trying to guilt us by calling us anti-Semites. On the right and on the left, we're Islamophobic and we're xenophobic and we're racist and we're all this, that, and the third. But you know what? I'm over it. And so are all millennials and Gen Zers. I'm going to tell you the guys' story. I remember being I was younger, my early 20s. I was still living at my mom's house, right? Because the economy. I was living in New Jersey, a blue state under Governor Murphy at the time, who was a terrible governor. Anyways, putting that aside, I remember being in my mother's kitchen, and it was me, my twin sister, my brother, my mom, my stepdad, my uncle, my aunt. And we're all talking about, I'm pretty sure we were talking about Trump or something. I'm pretty sure me and my sister were already on the MAGA train. We were already conservative, and we were talking about, why we want to move forward, why we want to vote for Trump, what we think he's going to do in the first term, why we like him so much. And they kept bringing up their own stories, their own woe tales. Woe tales. That's such a cartoon series. It's like Dragon Tales, but the woe was me. Anyways, my aunt and my uncle were telling me a story about how when they were younger, because they're boomers, they're up there in age. My uncle, God rest his soul, he passed away not that long ago, about a year or 2 years ago. Anyways, they told me about how when they would visit family in the South, they had to be sent right back up to the North. Why? Because they didn't know how to act in the South, and they were getting chased down by the KKK. This was their story, like the boomers. Now, luckily for me, I had adults as parents. My mother is a boomer, not a Gen Xer. Thank the Lord. I think that played a huge difference in my upbringing than having, one generation as above me, older than me as a parent, if you will. Anyways, they were running literally from the KKK when they were younger. My mom, she told me her story. She didn't run from she wasn't running from the KKK. I don't think she went to the South. I think after hearing those stories, why would she? Anyways, before I was born, my mom told me that she went for a job and she was denied a job simply because she was black and female. And when I heard those stories, I acknowledged how terrible those situations were. Like, my gosh, I can't even believe, like, it's not just in the history books. Like, my family can tell me these stories. Like, my gosh, that's terrible. But you know what I also said? How grateful I am to have been born in 1995. Because when I was born with all my rights intact. Now, I'm not saying everything was perfect in the 90s. I'm saying that by the time I became an adult, I'm not being discriminated against because I'm black or Hispanic or female. I'm not being discriminated against. I'm not. I can have whatever job I want if I choose to. Get the skills, put in the work, show that I'm adequate, that I have the merit to do the job. I'm not being discriminated against. I'm not being chased by white people. On the contrary, I'm someone who's dated white men. So I don't have this issue that they had. My grievances are not theirs. And so I appreciate their stories. In fact, I refer to the boomer generation as living memory. I think it's important to appreciate living memory. It's why a lot of us were super pissed with Cuomo because he killed so many of them when he sent COVID infected patients back into the nursing homes, because he killed off thousands of living memory. And I was angry about that because I appreciate their stories, what their resilience, what they had to overcome, the fact that they got to live to see the day where I'm not being discriminated against, where I can have whatever job I want if I work at it, where I can love who I want to love. Black, white, Asian, probably won't date a Chinese person. I think they're all spies. I mean, after Fang Fang. But you catch my drift. I appreciate their stories. We love our grandparents and we love our parents and we love the stories that they have to tell us because it's such a horror to hear that it happened to family. But it makes you appreciate what you have more. It means that we're blessed. So be grateful for living memory and the life that they lived. And what they fought for, what they had to live through, so that way we don't have to live what they had to. Some could argue that it made us soft, maybe. But appreciate it. With that said, we cannot allow the woes of yesteryear to dictate our policy today. And that was the point that Nick was trying to get across that Piers just did not pay attention to. He acknowledged that in his reaction video today, right? That it was just that maybe it is a generational thing, that perhaps young people don't care. And instead of hearing us out, instead of listening to the grievances that we actually have today and why we're so against not just the pro I lobbying group, but why we're against pretty much being anywhere in the Middle East, being anywhere around the world. Focus on the Western Hemisphere. Focus here at home. That's where we need our attention. That's where he needs to pay attention to, because this is the place that was so disrespected and just ignored for decades, because we've been spending so much time on the grievances and the woes of the post World War II victims. Nick was really trying to lay that out. And honestly, I really wish that Piers paid attention to it, because that really characterizes this entire America First movement to begin with. We do believe that the Zionists and the pro-I lobbyists and the Middle East, that country in the Middle East, APAC, we do believe that they spent decades changing our policy, making it more comfortable for them. But by doing that, we've made it easy for anybody to come into this country and to become an American citizen, all the while not having assimilated. Remember, I did my episode about loyalties, which they do not have. These two specific groups right out of the Middle East. I'm so sick of these victims of isms. I'm over it. And I'm over it dictating policy. This is how we feel. This is the problem. And this is what Pierce refused to acknowledge in his interview with Nick. He was so focused on gotcha questions, and he can sit there and he can say, well, I wanted to interview him. This wasn't about winning. It's like, but then why did you pull up all of these clips? You could have watched some of the clips, gotten some of the quotes, and then asked him to really expand on his logic on it, which I think Nick did a very good job. When Nick was talking about why he was being, doing this sensationalism regarding the Holocaust and, about the body count from how many died, why he says what he says about Hitler and all that jazz, he was making the point that he says the things that he says, not all because he really believes it. Sometimes it is just him being hyperbolic and just over exaggerating for sensationalism. But it's the fact that you can't discuss it at all, where it's criminal to talk about it at all. That there is this old guard that says, accept what we're telling you, or be canceled. Accept what we're telling you, or be arrested in some countries. And we're not having it, not with the boomers from that keep trying to push this woe is me policy, I should say. That it's because of this why we have to do this. No, we're not guilty. The same way whites today are not guilty for slavery and Jim Crow. You can't tell Black people that whites today are not guilty, but then hold all of America and all of the West responsible for what happened to the Jays in the 40s and the Holocaust. You cannot do that. Christians do not persecute the Jays for the crucifixion. We acknowledge it. We never forget it. We remember it. But we don't hold you responsible today for what was done. We'll never forget it, which is why we're looking at it like, but you came to my country and changed it. We had compassion for you, which is why we let you seek refuge here. But then you had to take over. When Pierce asked Nick about why do you keep talking about the world Jewry, right? And Pierce, honestly, the fact that he didn't know this was shocking, because I didn't know it either. But you're Piers Morgan, and you're asking him this because, again, he wants a gotcha question moment. That's what this entire interview was. When Nick actually explained, said, no, there is an actual Congress of Judaism for the world. that it's a World Jury Congress, that Barry Weiss actually speaks at regularly. He's like, he watches the speeches, that this is a real thing. He's like, I didn't make up this term. That's exactly what they called the Congress, their Congress. And it's all about how they can take over the world, take over to make sure that what happened in the Holocaust never happens again. But that never again mentality changed the demographics of our nation. Could one say it was unintended consequences? Maybe, perhaps. We could say that. Let's show some grace. Unintended consequences that we've allowed other cultures and other religions into our country. Okay, unintended. You just wanted to make sure that no persecution, no violent persecution could happen to you. Okay, I'll show you some grace there. But you still did it though, didn't you? You still did it. And now that you got young people like Nick Fuentes and myself and others saying that we're sick of being manipulated. We're sick of hearing, well, it's the Christian thing to do. Enough of that. We're sick of the old guard saying that. Enough of your woe is me's. If we're sick of the victims of isms on the left, what makes you think we won't be sick of them on the right? Enough of that. Honestly, post World War II, this Christian compassion, it was weaponized and we were guilt tripped for decades. And what did the West do? We relaxed our own sovereignty. So that never happens again. And the result is we lost control over the West, over our own countries. And as the decades went on and on and on, you have these Zionists who say, but we owe Israel because of what happened. No, we owe them nothing. You got activists on both sides, victim class activists who are like, oh, we owe reparations to the blacks and we owe to the Jays because of the Holocaust. And you know what America First answer is? America First Christians, you know what we say? Here Christ is king. It's his job to end the evil in the world, not ours. Our job is to be proper stewards of the nation that we've inherited, not atone for the crimes committed by the past. We're not atoning for it. We did not commit these crimes. We did not commit these sins. It's not our fault. So stop asking us to be the ones who pay for it. We're sick of that crap. Honestly, I mean, when he said it, it was like, thank you. Because I'm tired of hearing it. Things have gotten better. It's not what it was when my parents were my age or younger. It's not what it was. There is no more Jim Crow. There is no discrimination against blacks because you're black. There is no discrimination because you're female. Right? We choose to segregate ourselves. We choose to do that. It's our choice. It's not law. We exercise our prejudice because it's our personal preference. And now it's a safety precaution. That is the fault of the Democrats for relaxing laws. Don't call us anti-Semitic because we don't want to continue to fund you. How much more money do you require from us, from people who are not responsible? First of all, we were never responsible. You may have been able to argue way back when, because I do believe that the United States played a role in creating the villain that they had to deal with. Okay, but then that was mad long ago. The same way I look at blacks, like, what do you mean reparations? You want white people to pay for what? What did they do today? Nothing. Except keep quiet, allow you to abuse them in the media, to make them look like buffoons in film and television, or racists when they're not. That they're not allowed to have pride in their ancestry. They're not allowed to have pride in their country. They can't change being white any more than I can change being black, Hispanic. But we should be proud of our country. I'm proud of it, despite the fact that there are woe is me stories. But I'm proud of it because it's like, my God, in 250 years, slavery ended in this country. And like, the slavery ended. The country had been around for what? Less than a century, almost a century when we ended slavery. How many other countries did it take? People say, oh, well, Britain ended it sooner. it lasted longer. You can't keep trying to get people to atone for stuff they're not guilty of, and a whole nation, an entire culture to pay for it. We're not guilty, and we're sick of hearing it. You're raping my paycheck every week to pay for a grievance, a woe is me from decades ago. Why? Stop that. That's how we're feeling. And Nick said it. We don't care. Pierce thought he was doing something smart when he played that video. Even when he played it, I felt the same frustration that Nick felt. And I was just watching. Like, oh, here we go. Here we go. Here's another old person, another victim of the Holocaust. Here we go. And then he's mad at Nick for being sick of it. We're sick of it. You bang this crap in our head and now we're tired. We're done. Because now we're the adults. We're not students in history class anymore. We're the ones paying the taxes. We're the ones who can't buy a house. We're the ones who struggle to buy cars. We have to choose between a vacation once every few years or paying down debt. Granted, a lot of people went to college, went for degrees that they shouldn't have. Personally, I'm someone who didn't go to college and I'm building this network. I have a very good job. I live well. Didn't go to college. So I can't sit here and say that everybody has to. That's one thing I disagree with Nick on. I think it's okay to become a blue collar worker. Honestly, my brother became a millionaire and he didn't go to college. He owns 2 businesses. Didn't go to college. Can't sit here and say that it's necessary or it's mandatory. But the reality is that we can do that now. There's no government, no entity saying that I can't. So stop trying to convince me that the woes of yesteryear are the same woes today. They're not. Stop trying to make us feel bad when you play these videos of these elderly people. And it's like you're making it difficult to appreciate their stories and to be grateful for the time of which we were born. You're making it harder. Because though things have changed to some degree, my government has lied to me. You've pushed propaganda. You've indoctrinated me. And now that I've been made aware of all of that, you don't get to be upset that I'm now aware. That's your fault. During the whole beginnings of this MAGA movement, how many people woke up to the problems of our government? You can't put that genie back in the bottle. You can't do that. And I'm just going to leave it there on that particular point. But you guys catch my drift and you understand if you watch that moment, like that was the one for me. That was like, that was the icing on the cake. Obviously, there were multiple moments. The virginity attack that Pierce did, I thought that had no class and no taste for Pierce to say he's a Catholic, but then to clap at Nick for being a virgin. I thought, you're a hypocrite because that's exactly what scripture demands of us, to be chaste until married. And that's what Nick is practicing. And all of a sudden, he's angry because he's following the scripture. No, he's angry because of you boomers and the old guard. That's why he's angry. That's why we're all angry. I think Nick did a great job explaining prejudice and why we have to exercise it. But honestly, it all proved the same thing, that the old guard is just terrified that the new generation, which is going to be the majority of the voting bloc within the next 5 to 10 years, it is what it is there. That this guilt trip that they've been doing for decades isn't going to fly anymore. And at some point or another, it will end. This will end in one of 2 ways: by us voting and changing it, or a physical conflict. Those are the only 2 ways this is changing. Now, as America First, we're not going to apologize for this. I think, honestly, we're not going to do that. We're not. We love our country. We love our grandparents. We love living memory and the stories that they have to share. You never forget them. It's why we want to keep hearing them. But don't use it to manipulate policy anymore. We're done with that. We're done with it. But that's my time. Let me know what you think in the comment section. What did you think of the interview between, Pierce's interview with Nick Fuentes? Do you agree with me? Do you think that Nick characterized it just right? That just young people, millennials and Gen Zers, just over the woe is me dictating policy in America? I want to know what you think in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do that. Hit that notification bell so you never forget when an episode is coming out or anything like that. Remember, click that link in the description box as well, because the Becoming Brazen novel that I wrote back in 2017 is available for free for you all to download. I just want to know what you guys think. Remember, I was in my Jackie Collins face, so it's a bit vulgar, but I think you guys are going to like it. So make sure you go ahead and click that link down there and snatch up a copy and let me know what you think. I really want to know, because that's going to tell me if I'm right in the second one, because my sister's ready for the sequel. But again, that's my time. God bless you all. And until next time.